Sent. All right, never mind.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. It is 6:34 p.m. Today is Thursday. Not Thursday. Today is Monday, July 21st, 2025. This is a special meeting of the Planning and Land Use Committee of the Beverly Crest Neighborhood Council. I want to welcome everyone for joining us today. The first order of business is the flag salute. I'm not sure if we have a flag. I don't see our chair here who normally has the flag.
Kathy, what are you saying?
I muted her.
Okay, so we don't have a flag, so we're going to pretend like we have a flag. And who would like to, Dr. Longcore, I see the flag behind you. Thank you very much. Would you like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you so much. The next order of business is going to be the roll call. I do not see Mr. Schlesinger here. Ms. Greenberg,
Here.
Ms. Miner,
Here.
Ms. Templeton,
Here.
Ms. Levinson, not present. Mr. Spradlin,
here.
Jamie Hall, I'm here. Ms. Savage, not here. Leslie Weisberg, not present.
She's here.
Oh, there she is. I saw her. She said hello to me. Miss Evans,
I'm here.
Miss Gray,
Here.
Mr. Kemp,
Here.
and Dr. Longcore.
Here.
All right. So we have a really good turnout. Thank you all for joining us on kind of relatively short notice in this special meeting. The first item that we have on the agenda is the general public comment. The Beverly Crest Neighborhood Council welcomes comments from the public on any topic within the committee's jurisdiction, but not on the adopted agenda. General public comment is generally limited to 1 minute per speaker unless waived by the presiding officer. So if you are in attendance and you would like to speak on an item that is not on the agenda today, i.e. not something related to the Sepulveda Transit Corridor Draft Environmental Impact Report, now is your opportunity to speak during the general public comment period. We'd ask for you to raise your hand and we will elevate you to a speaker so that you can speak. Would anyone like to speak during the general public comment period?
Well, we do have one hand up by Irene Sandler, who's in that.
I suspect that Miss Sandler is asking to be elevated to a panelist. Miss Sandler, let's let her tell us. Can someone unmute Miss Sandler? All righty. Is she unmuted?
I've asked to unmute.
We have requested.
Yeah.
Okay, so, looks like we might be having some technical difficulties there. Perhaps Miss Sandler doesn't know how to unmute herself. We will hopefully resolve that. Would anyone else like to speak during the general public comment period? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and close the general public comment period. If we can resolve that technical issue, of course. Oh, Miss Sandler, I see that maybe can you hear us now?
She's muted.
Now she's in on 2 lines. Okay, we're going to go ahead and close the general public comment period. Move on to item number 2. That's presentation and discussion regarding the Sepulveda Transit Corridor Draft Environmental Impact Report. Before we go into this item, I just want to go ahead and give everybody some information about why we're here, what we're doing, what we can expect to happen on a going forward basis. As you may know, Metro has released the draft environmental impact report for the Sepulveda Transit Corridor. That's a significant transportation project that is proposed within our jurisdiction. We don't get those too often. And we're in the public comment period. And a large draft environmental impact report has been published, and Metro is asking for public comment on that. So Dr. Longcore reached out and suggested that we have a series of meetings to go over the project, The first meeting, as we know, is a special meeting of the Planning and Land Use Planning and Land Use Committee of the Neighborhood Council. Subsequent meetings are likely going to be being done by an ad hoc committee composed of members of both the Planning and Land Use Committee and the Transportation Committee, the Traffic Committee. And the purposes of this are to educate people about the proposal and the alternatives and to receive information from stakeholders and to convey information to elected officials. We expect to have 4 to 5 meetings. Today's the first. We're hopeful that we'll have meetings on July 28th, August 4th, August 11th, and August 18th. So you may want to just go ahead and mark your calendars for that. The first meeting here is really going to be just sort of the nuts and bolts, the basics of what is the project and what are the alternatives. The second meeting, we have kind of scratched out what we think might be some of the topics. The second meeting, we were thinking community perspectives. The third meeting, educational perspectives. And the fourth meeting, potentially a robust public hearing. And the fifth meeting, deliberation from the ad hoc committee before it goes to the full neighborhood council for consideration. We're going to be inviting guests to attend at these meetings. And we want to be careful to note that while we are inviting guests, we're not endorsing any of the opinions necessarily of the guests that are coming to speak. We just thought we should invite people who have more information than us. And so the first guest that we have here tonight is Bob Anderson. He's with the Sherman Oaks Homeowners Association. He's apparently, I don't know Mr. Anderson very well, but Dr. Longcore has nothing but high praise for him and his expertise on this subject. So we want to open the floor with Mr. Anderson, who's going to give us a presentation as to the project so that we can get a better understanding of what this is and what the alternatives are. Dr. Longcore, I see your hand is raised.
And I was just going to say, and maybe we do public comment like at the end of Bob's presentation and then get into Q&A just to make sure we leave time for public comment as part of this conversation as well.
And we're hoping we're going to end here at 8:30. So we're going to have Mr. Anderson, who's going to be giving a presentation, and then we're going to open it up for public comment. And then we'll have, as Dr. Longcore stated, the public comment period. Ms. Miner, I see your hand is raised.
She's muted.
You're muted, Nikki. All right. Still muted, so why don't we go ahead? If we can get yourself unmuted, we can certainly take your comment or your question. But in the interest of time, Mr. Anderson, would you like to go ahead and start?
Sure. I've kind of made this a little bit ad hoc so that, there's so much information, and I hope everybody can hear me well. I've been studying this project since before it started in 2015. I was making comments on Measure M and things like that. And to be frank, I just kind of got mad. We had a lot of good comments that my organization submitted, and Metro just ignored them. And I don't know if you've been in the same situation, but we have. And so I started getting really into it. I have pulled a lot of documents through California Public Record Act requests, and I know a lot about procurement processes, and I've got a technical background. I have a dual degrees in physics and engineering from Berkeley. And so I can understand this stuff pretty well. And for example, when SkyRail and Bechtel made their proposals to Metro, I pulled the proposals as soon as they were available and read them all 3 times. The 2 companies that won and the 2 companies that lost. So it gives you a pretty good background to what's going on. I'm going to share my screen if that's okay.
Sure.
It should work now.
Okay, there it is. Where are you? Okay. I'll ask a question, and that is, how much do the people on this meeting know about the project at all? Is it just basics, or are you pretty new to it?
I think you should assume that there's varying levels of knowledge. Some
Sure.
people who just
Okay.
generally know, oh, it's a subway that's proposed. Then other people who know intimate details. So I would, there's varying levels of knowledge.
Sure. Um, this started in 2017. Metro originally had 6 concepts.
We're still looking at your desktop, not any presentation.
Yeah, I'm
Oh,
going
okay.
to do it individually, but we'll talk about alignments and stuff.
Okay, great.
Can you see the map?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Okay. But what I want to say is Metro started this in 2017, 18, and they started out with 6 concepts, and they each had variations. So there were about 25, 27 concepts. They then narrowed it down to 4, and then those 4 included some subways, some monorails. And a lot of people ask, why did they look at a monorail? And it's a real simple answer. The subway trains, like the big heavy rail trains they're talking about, like if you've ever ridden the red line or the purple line, those are the only 2 heavy rail lines in LA County right now. The rest are all called light rail. They're smaller trains, don't come as often. The heavy rail trains have steel wheels and the tracks are steel, and they can only go up about a 6% grade as a hill. It turns out the Sepulveda Pass is 7%. And so they can't go up and over the hill. So they have to become a subway and go underneath it. But a monorail that has rubber tires and runs on a concrete track can go up a 10% grade. And so the monorails are capable of going up and over the hill above ground, which makes them less expensive. And so that's why Metro was looking at monorails along with actually light rails and heavy rails. But the light rail concepts didn't make it through the gates. So when they finally came up into the scoping period for the environmental report in about 2022, they decided there would be 6 alternatives, 3 monorails and 3 heavy rails. And the alternatives 1, 2, and 3 were monorails. And they were bid to Metro through a process that they call pre-development contracts. I won't go into all the details, but they ended up, Metro usually hires an outside contractor or maybe works internally to come up with these designs. This is the first time they haven't done that. They went to a company called LA Skyrail Express that was a consortium of several companies that were capable of doing the design, build, financing, operations, maintenance, and everything else. And they bid monorails to Metro, and Metro selected them as one of the contractors. So Skyrail, as I tend to call them, bid one concept. Metro got a few more. Skyrail is designed the alternative 1 and alternative 3 for Metro, and they were both monorails. And there was an alternative 2, but it disappeared. And the same thing, they got Bechtel to design a heavy rail. And Bechtel designed alternatives 4 and 5, which are heavy rails. A lot of people say they're subways, and 5 is a subway, 4 is kind of a half a subway. We'll go into that in a minute. There's 6 alternatives. What happened to the 6th one? Well, for some reason, I have guesses, but I just won't talk about it tonight. It gets too complicated. Metro knew they had to look at a 6th alternative because they had studied it earlier, and because of the environmental rules, CEQA, California Environmental Quality Act, they can't just drop a concept. So they got their own environmental contractor to design Alternative 6 and also to evaluate it environmentally, which required a lot of conflict of interest compromises and stuff like that, but they got it worked out. So you have 5 alternatives, 1, 4, 3, 4, 5, and 6. 1 and 3 are monorails, 4, 5, and 6 are heavy rails. And I'll show you what the alignments look like. These are right out of the environmental impact report. They're pretty much what Metro's been showing all along. This is alternative 1 on this map, and it is completely above ground. It is the only concept that is completely above ground, and it is a monorail. And all the concepts, by the way, for this, all of the alternatives go from the same place to the same place, more or less. It goes from the Metro E line, which runs down near Pico Boulevard, the Expo line it used to be called. It goes through Westwood, somehow connects to UCLA, some with a UCLA station, some not. This does not have a UCLA station. Where the purple line is, that's this one shown here. And it goes up over the hill into the valley, and it goes all the way up into Van Nuys to the train tracks and makes a right turn and comes over here. But this is entirely above ground. It runs mostly in the center of the 405 through the pass. In the valley, it runs on the east side of the 405. I don't know exactly which side it runs on down in the Westwood area. But this is alternative 1. And so then we'll go to alternative 3. This is alternative 3. It is also a monorail, so it can go over the pass, and it does. And it's exactly the same in the valley and pretty much the same through the pass, except because UCLA wants a station on campus, and that's quite important for them and Metro also. To get a train on campus, they have to have a tunnel. And you'll see that all the rest of the alternatives have some portion of tunnel. And the tunnel is indicated down here in this area with a heavier dash. And so the monorail is above ground for its first 2 stations at Pico and Santa Monica Boulevards. Then it goes underground for the D-Line station in Westwood and the UCLA station on campus. I think it's in front of the Luskin Center. Oh, alternative 1 has an electric bus that connects to UCLA with 2 stops. And then it comes out, if everybody knows, here's the Getty Center. There is a station on the monorail for the Getty Center. I didn't mention that before. None of the subways can have it, but the monorail can because it goes by the Getty Center. But this tunnel starts at the Leo Beck Temple. If everyone knows where that is, it's approximately across the street across Sepulveda from the Getty parking lot structure. And it goes under Bel Air. They've tried to run the route underneath the golf courses and stuff like that, where it's somewhat shallow. Down here in this part of Bel Air, the tunnels are all not super low below ground. I mean, 40 or 50 feet, but these are big tunnels. And then it comes up over to the valley. So this is it. And those are the only 2 monorails that you have. And these were both designed by SkyRail, which is a monorail consortium. Then the next one is called Alternative 4. And Alternative 4 and 5 were designed by a Bechtel-led consortium, and they are both heavy rails. These are the big, heavy trains that can carry a lot of passengers, like the Red Line or the new Purple Line along Wilshire that they're just finishing up. Those are the only 2 heavy rails in LA County planned, and this would be a 3rd one if they used heavy rail. And so This one is underground, under the pass and on the west side. And so it starts again down near the Metro E line, the Expo line, goes up. It has an on-campus UCLA station, Wilshire, same stations you saw before. It does not have a Getty station. It goes underground, and it comes, unfortunately, out of the ground in the valley. And you can see how the heavy lines turn into a lighter dotted line. This runs above ground in the valley along Sepulveda Boulevard with 4 stations. And I will tell you right now, I do not know one person who lives in the San Fernando Valley, no matter where they live, who likes this option. And we're fighting the hell out of it. It's just, it'd be the only heavy rail running above ground in all of LA County. You'll hear a lot of people say, oh, suck it up, it's fine. You know, we've got the Expo line, that's above ground, we've got this, you know, we've got the blue line. Those are light rail. They don't run that often, the trains. They're smaller, they're quieter. These are 70-mile-an-hour trains running at the same height as apartment buildings, bedroom windows. And they're a disaster. That's my personal opinion, and anybody I know out here in the valley. So we are fighting this one tooth and nail. They did it because it saves them about $5 billion to not go underground in the valley. And that's the only reason they did it, Metro. But this is alternative 4. Bechtel also designed, where'd my mouse go? Excuse me. Bechtel also designed the 5th alternative. Alternative 5 is also a subway. And it's a complete subway. It has exactly the same route up through Bel Air and into the valley, but instead it stays under Sepulveda Boulevard the whole way. So it's the heavy line and stays the whole way. And this has 8 stations. There's 4 on the west side, 4 in the valley. And these are basically all the alternatives that were designed by the consortiums of either SkyRail or Bechtel. And I bring that up because it's very important. All of these trains, whether it's monorail or heavy rail, have about the same passenger capacity. And I want to talk about passenger capacity for a second. If you've attended any Metro meetings, you've seen them talk a lot about ridership. And ridership is how many people Metro predicts using a model will ride the train and get off at UCLA or get off at the Metro E line or get off in Van Nuys. And it's fairly sophisticated analysis that they do, but it's very hard to predict. And if you've seen any of the charts, they're predicting that you'll get a lot more people on the heavy rail trains than you will on the monorails. I did a lot of modeling in my career. I don't believe the modeling results are true. And I also found out that when they did the modeling, they didn't even put the same number of parking places at each station where there are similar stations. So the whole thing's not done very well. Passenger capacity is a different thing. It doesn't take any modeling. There's federal rules. You figure out how many people can cram into a car of a train, how many cars are a train in the whole train, how many cars in the train. Monorails have 6, the heavy rails have 3 or 4. And then you figure out how close the trains can be and you come up with a number. Passenger capacity is extremely important because we want as many people to be able to ride this thing as possible. And in the future, when more and more people are taking public transit, and this goes all the way down to LAX, which it will in about 2055, the more people you can get on it, the better. So you
Bob
want to have plenty of,
Anderson is talking. See if you can get on. I sent you the link.
what's that? I couldn't hear. I'm sorry.
Okay, 'cause I sent you
Sorry,
the
it looks like the
link.
Miss Minor is accidentally speaking, so she's
Oh.
muted herself.
Okay, that's okay. Sorry. Uh, all these four, the 1 and 3 monorails, the 4 and 5 heavy rails, have a passenger capacity, and it's a weird unit. It's 16,000 passengers per hour per direction. That's good. And they're all modern trains, which means if you've gotten on the Red Line or any of these trains and you get on, you're stuck inside the car. You can't walk through the entire train. That's a security risk. If somebody in the next car is being attacked by someone, and there's been a lot of problems on Metro, and the security officers in the next car, they can't get to the thing till they get to the station, and somebody could be hurt. These are alternatives 1, 3, 4, and 5 are very modern. They're fully automated. They will have no drivers. They'll be automated trains. They're driverless. You can walk through the whole train. They're good modern technology. If you've been to any of the new stations in places like London and others, you come into the station, there's glass doors in the station so you can't fall onto the track accidentally, and those doors line up with the cars when they come in and they open. They're called screen doors. It has all of that. So you're looking at two very, very modern transit systems that have just about the same capacity within 100 passengers. And that's a large capacity. Metro's ridership doesn't come anywhere near that capacity. And because they're very modern, they can actually run the trains closer together for short periods of time if there's a special event, like maybe an Olympics, not, or whatever. And they can actually get up to over 20,000 passengers per hour. If you want this thing to be ready for the future, that's very important to think about. And Metro does not talk about passenger capacity much. They give you the numbers, and if you know how to calculate it, you can calculate it, but you won't find it on anything. I don't know why they won't tell people, but they don't. So what we're going to do is get to alternative 6. Alternative 6 looks a lot like alternative 5 with one exception on the route. Where alternative 5 is a subway under the hill and it goes under Sepulveda Boulevard, alternative 6 takes a little bit different route through the hill, a little bit different on the west side too, but it's got all the same stations. But when it gets to the valley, it basically goes under Beverly Glen. Now, it cuts through Bel Air here in this little triangular area down here. But it's under Beverly Glen part of the way, and then it goes under Van Nuys Boulevard in the valley. And there's a lot of people in the valley that like this alignment better than under Sepulveda, where you're right next to the freeway. And Van Nuys, if you know it, if you don't, it's got more commercial on it. It's got less residential, and it also has a lot of the city, county, and state buildings along it. So it's a good route. And as I said, a lot of people like it. It only has 3 valley stations. It doesn't have a Sherman Way station. And a lot of people wonder why that happened, and I don't have an answer for that. But here's the kicker, and Metro does not explain this well, and you'll find an awful, awful lot of people who don't know this. This line was not designed by Bechtel, because it's a subway, but it was not designed by Bechtel. It was done by Metro's environmental contractor. They designed an old-fashioned piece of junk as alternative 6. Those are my words. The DEIR does not say that, obviously. These are red line trains. They're 40-year-old technology. You can't walk through the cars. You can't have screen doors on the stations. And the passenger capacity of this line absolutely maximum peaks out at 12,000 passengers per hour. Alternatives 1, 3, 4, and 5 peak are 16,000 passengers per hour, and they can peak at over 20,000, maybe 21,000 passengers per hour. This line will never go higher than 12,000 passengers per hour because the trains are driver operated. And driver operated trains have to be kept farther apart because they don't have the automatic braking and control systems. Now everybody says, okay, I talked to a guy I know in Studio City. They were writing a letter to Metro supporting Alternative 6. And I said, and he said, because it's the highest capacity. I said, first, it's not, it's the lowest. Second, you're buying, who's going to go out and buy a 40-year-old car when you can buy a new car for the same price? This one actually costs more. This is the highest price alternative of any of them. And it's the shortest. And he said, wow. So I convinced him when they made the recommendation to Metro to resubmit it and say, we support Alternative 6 only if it has driverless modern technology with all these features. And it's a travesty that they did this. People are comparing these en route, but they don't know that one is a very old-fashioned set of technology and the others aren't. And it's very unfair. And they're not being very open with the public about it. It's all in the DEIR, but you have to find a lot of it buried. The DEIR total with appendices is 21,000 pages. I have been through every page. That doesn't mean I spent a lot of time on some of them, but I went through every one and looked, and there's stuff buried throughout that thing. And if you wonder where something is, I can probably tell you where to find it if you need some help, because it's hard to find the stuff. But this is a nice, decent route, but it's got an old technology associated with it. And, that is, to me, I'm a technical guy. To me, that is a problem that Metro is not making open enough. So those are the five alternatives. And I will show you something that I put this together because I got so tired of not finding everything in one place that I put this together myself about 4 years ago. And what it does is it shows all five alternatives, 1 and 3, 4 and 5. You'll notice we oppose 5 and 6. Some artist concepts, but this tells you how long the routes are, how many miles of tunnel they have, where the route runs, what their stations are, how often the trains will come in rush hour, what the passenger capacity is, and how long to travel from one end of the route to the other. The monorails are slower than the heavy rails. They don't go as fast, and they go over the hill and they weave around a little bit, so they take a little bit longer. But they're all within 18 to 28 minutes. You'll notice Alternative 6 a lot of people like because it's 18 minutes, because it's the shortest route. It talks about, mention about noise. These are Metro's these are Metro's budget numbers that they presented. I will show you their chart in a moment. This is a really weird situation. They presented these at a pre-DEIR meeting, but they're not presenting the charts at the DEIR work open meetings. So you won't see the cost charts, but I'll show it to you. They give the costs in 2023 dollars. I escalated them to 2025 because I don't know that I can buy anything in 2023 dollars today. If you can, that's neat. This is their budget, which is about $8 billion for Measure M in 2025 dollars. although they don't have all that available. They still have to get half of that from the federal government, and good luck with that today, I think, for a California rapid transit project in Los Angeles County. These are the costs down here, and these are the approximate times to build. These are from Metro. I'll show you the schedule chart in a moment. I have some very strong concerns about it. If you would like a copy of this chart, you can go to our website and get it. I'm with the Sherman Oaks Homeowners Association. I'll give you the website. It's www.SOHA, that's Sherman Oaks Homeowners Association, SOHA 914.com. If you go to that, and you'll find a button on the homepage that says Sepulveda Transit Corridor Project. Click there, and everything we've put together is on that page. And you can download all of these, plus all the letters I've written to Metro. I wrote them a 14-page letter, and the title was 10 Fatal Flaws in the DEIR. You can't make the decision yet. I've had people tell me that I need to get a taster because food taster, just because Metro may come after me. That is a joke. I'm not saying it's really true, but I've had a couple of people tell me that. But this is available if you want to look at it. It's got a lot of information on one page, and it's got my email at the bottom if you want to contact me. People ask, how long will these take to build? How much will these cost when they get it? Let me grab the right chart. Oh boy. Oh, sorry. Here we go. This is a chart that Metro presented at their May 2025 meeting. This is the meeting they held before the draft environmental impact report was released. And I expected it to be in every presentation. When I attended the next presentation, and I go to the virtual presentations, they did not present this chart. This is the first time Metro has given us cost numbers since 2019. And these numbers are a little bit interesting. I will go through them because it's a little bit complicated of the way this program is set up. What I didn't mention earlier is the reason Metro did all of these things with SkyRail as a consortium who could build, operate, design, and everything else, and Bechtel, the same type of consortium, is there is the possibility that this project could be the first project built with a public-private partnership with a contractor. It's a totally different way than Metro's ever built anything before. And they actually paid SkyRail and Bechtel each about $30 million to design these. And so what you see in the blue here, this is the basically the cost of the public-private partnership, the P3 developer managed. P3 is public-private partnership. So SkyRail or Bechtel would be managing the construction. This is Metro's cost, the Metro managed part. So that's their overhead cost and the cost for all the right-of-way for any eminent domain and stuff like that. And this is contingency. You add a certain amount of contingency, the more depending on how much design you've done. These have been designed to about what they call a 15% level. You'll see that up here at the top. And so what they're saying is, and this is in 2023 dollars, so you won't find these numbers on my one-page sheet. They'll be higher. $15 billion to design alternative 1. This is the only alternative without a tunnel. $21 billion about for alternative 3, $20 billion for alternative 4, $24 billion for alternative 5, $24 billion, a little bit more for alternative 6. Note alternative 6 has no blue section. It can't be built under a public-private partnership. It's old technology that cannot be built under a public-private partnership because they did not have a consortium design it. It's the shortest route. It has the highest cost. These subways today are costing about $2.4 billion a mile to build, and that's about what these work out to be. Why are these less? This has no tunnel. Alternative 1 has no tunnel. Why are these similar? I'll tell you right now, I have no idea. There is something wrong with these two numbers. I don't know. I have a good hunch I know what it is, but I can't tell you I truly know what it is. What I'll tell you is that Alternative 5 has 15 miles of tunnels. Alternative 4 has only 8.5 miles of tunnels. That's because it runs above ground in the valley, which is why the valley hates it, but that's why it's less. This alternative 3 has 3.6 miles of tunnel. And there's nobody in the world who's going to convince me that something with 3.6 miles of tunnel costs more than something with 8 miles of tunnel. It makes no common sense. And this number's the same way. I've got my own chart that I put together for this, and these are each $5 billion less. I have some ideas as to why this happened, but I don't trust these numbers. I don't know if anybody else is going to ever tell you that, but I really have a problem with these numbers. But at least we got some numbers to look at. But a lot of people I heard somebody say, well, look, this costs more than that, so why should I ever get a monorail? This number should be about $15 billion, maybe 16. To make any sense with these charts, this should be about 10. So there's something fishy here, and that's all I'll say. How long do these take to build? This was also presented at the same May 2025 meeting. Again, this chart has not been included in the DEIR package. Neither has a cost chart, by the way. You will not find it in the DEIR package, which is the first time Metro has not put a cost and schedule chart in the DEIR package. Not as part of the DEIR, but what they call part of the non-sequel package. So it becomes part of the package, but they don't have them. They all go through the same approval processes and everything else, and they take this long to build. But there's a problem with this chart too. Project schedule is not limited by project funding or approvals. In other words, if you don't have enough money to build Alternative 6 or Alternative 5 because you just don't happen to have $25 billion lying around, they're never going to construct it in 13 years. Metro actually talked about phasing these projects, and this is their phasing chart. This was again presented at the May 2025 meeting. It's not in the environmental package. It's an early phase. They do value engineering. That's nice. Who doesn't? But they construct the transit lines incrementally. Let me tell you how this is playing out in the valley. You may or may not know it. There's a north-south line in the valley that Metro's working on. It's ahead of schedule. You know, it's started earlier than this project. It goes along Van Nuys Boulevard up to the not the Metro. It starts at the Metrolink station in Van Nuys, or includes the Metrolink station in Van Nuys. It goes up to the Metrolink in Sylmar. It's very important because the line I'm talking about is called the East San Fernando Valley Transit Corridor. It's was supposed to be the high-speed connection between Santa Clarita and the trains coming in from Santa Clarita and even the bullet train, and connect it down to the Sepulveda Transit Corridor project. Unfortunately, Metro decided to make it a streetcar, basically. It's light rail with 14 stops and 9.1 miles. So it's a very slow, high-speed connection for anybody in North County. And because of that, when they started out, they had it all designed and said they were going to build the whole thing, but it turns out they only have enough money to build 2/3 of it. So they start at the orange line in the valley, which is about Chandler Boulevard, and they go north for 2/3 of it. They haven't designed the rest of it yet, but they've already run out of money. So when they phase, what it really is caused by is I don't have enough money to build the whole thing, so I'll phase it. Unfortunately, Metro chooses which one they're going to build before they decide if they're going to phase it or not. If they pick any of the really expensive projects, they're going to phase them. So they could build the UCLA station and the station at Ventura and Sepulveda and forget all the rest for a while and build the rest, which is really unfair for the public because you're voting on an entire line, alternate, that goes from one place to the other. But they're telling you they may change their mind and build it in phases instead. And so the phasing is something that's very concerning to me. The schedules are very concerning to me because they're nonsensical. You know, I was a project manager. I ran these kind of things. You have to know your budget. You have to know how long it takes to build, and then you figure out how long it's going to take you to build it, and you create your schedule. Metro has none of that information right now, but they are putting out schedules to show you in the public. I'm going to show you one other thing too, which is very interesting. This is buried very deeply in the DEIR. This is a little chart that you'll find in Chapter 4 of the DEIR. Turns out, if you don't know what the FTA is, that's the Federal Transit Administration or Authority. FTA has to approve all these things, and they're the organization that gives the money to Metro from the federal government. And until you have an FTA approved estimate, cost estimate, nothing will happen. BART's building an extension. They finally got an FTA approval up in the Bay Area, and hopefully they're going to be going before that. Metro does not have FTA approved estimate yet. But this is very interesting. It turns out in January of this year, the FTA, the Federal Transit Authority, put out a new set of guidelines for how they're going to rank the various projects when they come in. And they use a ranking system that's it's like A, B, C, D, F for a school, but they call it high, medium, low, and low. But basically, it's just a ranking system. They rank it in 3 different ways. The scary part right now is that Metros has spent between $150 and $200 million designing these concepts. And on a cost effectiveness basis, every one of them ranks as a D or an F, which is terrifying because they combine these scores at the FTA, and the projects with the highest scores get the money first. So not only do we have an administration that doesn't probably want to fund much in Los Angeles County right now, we have a project that they're showing that ranks as a D or an F on cost effectiveness after spending $200 million designing it. It ranks high on congestion relief and high on mobility improvements, but you have to combine all the scores. You want high scores up here. You know, you don't get to college if you've got a few A's and a few D's. You don't get to the big university. So They put this in, and when I saw it, I said, this is very, very scary. If I was Metro and I had in charge of this, I would have been beating people over the head so that these were highs and medium highs in this line, not lows and medium lows. But they didn't. And based on the new FTA guidelines developed in January 2025, we've got D's and F for cost effectiveness, which is not going to help us get money. So I've got all sorts of other things I can show you, but I think I probably will stop talking. And if you want to leave it shared, Travis, or whoever's in charge of this, I can leave it. And if people have questions, I can pull stuff out of here. What I did, just so you see these lists of things, as I went through the DEIR, thank you, Metro. They made the document locked so that you can't cut and paste out of it. So I took screenshots of about 100 different pages to get various things done.
There's a website you can go to, by the way, to unlock it.
Yeah, I know. And I unlocked it afterwards, but it's just like, give me a break. You know, why do you have to log the damn document?
I don't understand why they do that.
No.
Well, thank you, Mr. Anderson. We really appreciate this summary that helps us digest the project, the alternatives, some of the factors, some of the insights that you have. Just a reminder, everybody here, that while we appreciate Mr. Anderson, the Bel Air Beverly Crest Neighborhood Council isn't endorsing any of the opinions of the guests that are going to be appearing at these various sessions. We encourage everyone to reach their own opinion based on the information that's been provided.
And so do I. By the way, just so you know, our organization is not going to support any of the alternatives. And I'll tell you why. There are 10 flaws in the DEIR package. They're very, very serious. There's a letter about this available on our website you can look at. They're so serious that I determined, and talking to a bunch of people, we oppose alternative 4. That's simple. The other 4 alternatives, there is too much wrong with each of them for us to support one. So we have chosen not to. And a lot of people don't like that, but the process is just too screwed up. And again, that's my opinion. And, you know, just so you hear it.
Understood. And we encourage you to stick around, because here's the next sequence of events. We're now going to have the public speak on any item, or speak. We're going to give each person 2 minutes to speak. And then after that, we're going to open this up for deliberation of the committee, aka or we can ask questions of Mr. Anderson as well during that time period. But right now, if you're a member of the public and you would like to speak during the general public comment period, or not general public comment period, but the public comment period on this item, please raise your hand and I will call on you.
I'm going to stop sharing because it'll make the screen easier to use.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah,
all right.
If you want to go back,
Sure thing. Mr. San, someone will unmute you.
Yes, Mr. Hall, thank you so much, and members of the Bel Air Beverly Crest Neighborhood Council. My name is Steve San. I am the chairman of the Westwood Community Council. I was just this morning at a meeting we had with Robin Greenberg and Nikki Miner, and we are your neighbors to the south. We are part of the RAC, the Westside Regional Alliance of Councils. And I want to first say thank you to Mr. Anderson. This is the first time I've had a chance to hear his full presentation. And Mr. Anderson, very impressed. And I want to tell you, it may surprise you, I agree with a lot of what you said. I don't agree with 100%, but I agree with a lot of what you said.
We're all trying to get a good project.
Yes, absolutely. And I want to let your council know, you may be aware, and I know your BABCNC chair, Travis Longcore, is very aware, and Robin is as well, that the RAC, a couple of years ago, we took a position. It was unanimous. Your council did not weigh in. Yours was the only one. You didn't oppose, you didn't support, you did not take a vote on it. But the other 13 councils of RAC unanimously voted to endorse two very key principles, and I want to highlight those. One is we are saying to the Metro Board, whichever alternative you choose, whether it's 1, 3, 4, 5, or 6, 2 has been eliminated, as Mr. Anderson noted, that alternative must have a station on the UCLA campus. That's an imperative. And Metro's own studies show that a campus station would be the busiest single line station, not just in this Sepulveda project, but of the entire LA County metro system. Something like 18,000 people a day are projected to ride that station or use that station. And I know Mr. Anderson said projections are projections. That's, you know, it's a hopefully an educated estimate or guesstimate, but the numbers that they're showing show huge numbers for a UCLA station. And that's not surprising given the thousands, tens of thousands of people who are coming to UCLA for their jobs, for their education, for their medical treatment at the Ronald Reagan Hospital, for cultural events, sporting events, the plenitude of reasons that people come to UCLA. UCLA is now, it just bumped up. It was the fourth. It's now the third largest employer in LA County. It's the largest employer outside of downtown. So that's point one. And point two is we said unanimously to the Metro Board, whichever alternative you choose, it must have a direct, seamless connection, excuse me, to the Wilshire Purple D line in Westwood Village. And Metro's analysis shows again that if this north-south line from the Valley to the West Side were to connect at Wilshire with the Purple line, that station at Wilshire Westwood would become the busiest station in the county. Something, I want to say 33,000. I mean, it's in the 30,000s, the number of riders who would be projected to use that station. So those two key points. And that, frankly, knocks out alternative one right off the bat, because alternative one is the only one that skips the UCLA campus, that skips the village, that does not have a direct connection to the Purple Line. And as Mr. Anderson noted, instead, it would drop people off on the other side of the 405 on the VA hospital property. And then people would have to get in an ordinary bus or an electric bus in mixed traffic, travel through the traffic of the Wilshire congestion, and then tootle up to the village and up to the campus. That alone could add 15 to 20 minutes in the ride. So alternative one, in our opinion, and frankly, based on RAC's unanimous vote, alternative one is off the table. The remainder options, all 3, 4, 5, and 6 have the direct station on the campus, and the alternative 3 does have a connection to the Purple Line. There are some folks who don't feel it really meets the standard of seamless and direct. It's a little bit of a tortured connection, but it does connect. So those two key points. I want to also tell your group and Mr. Anderson, we completely agree. Alternative 4 is an atrocious proposal. We oppose it. We oppose it for the reasons it is massively unfair to say to our neighbors in the Valley that they do not get the same high quality transit that we get on the West Side. And I know that my friends in the Valley have felt for years, we got an Expo light rail line and the Valley got an orange bus line. And our folks and neighbors in the Valley feel they've been shortchanged, and they have been. And they absolutely should not be shortchanged on this project. We would not want a hulking structure hovering over Westwood Village. I'm sure Brentwood would not want a hulking station hovering over San Vicente Boulevard. And our friends in Sherman Oaks absolutely should not have the blight of a station at Ventura and Sepulveda. And two other quick reasons: climate change. We know, first of all, the Valley is always hotter than the city, and the planet is only heating up. We feel that people waiting for this line should not have to wait in the heat of an exposed open air above ground station. They should have a climate controlled, nice, clean station, air conditioned, just like we're going to have on the West Side. Our Valley friends and neighbors deserve the same. So Alt 4, in our view, should be off the table. And I would encourage you to join in with many voices in not supporting Alt 4. And finally, Alt 6, I completely agree with Mr. Anderson. The idea of using 40-year-old technology, it's ridiculous. The proposal for driverless trains, that's the way to go. That's what modern cities are building. So you're looking at 3, 4, and 5 have these driverless automated trains. And by the way, we will get our first driverless trains, I believe, later this year when the LAX People Mover opens up that connects to LAX, that will use and introduce driverless train technology to LA County for the first time. So those are my comments for now. And I want to thank Mr. Anderson for his very insightful information. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. San. I let you speak longer because you had such, you were so informed, and I didn't see any other hands raised. So anyone else who's an attendee today that would like to speak, please raise your hand. We're happy to hear from you. Not seeing any additional hands right now.
Excuse me, Jamie.
Yes.
My hand is up is because I wanted to tell you that I believe that Robert Schlesinger is Zoom user in attendees, and if you ask him if that's who he is, then Travis can move him into the meeting. He's apparently that's who he is.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Schlesinger, if you raise your hand, if you're a Zoom user, Dr. Longcore will promote you to a panelist. But right now, anyone else in the attendees that would like to speak, please raise your hand. All right, doesn't look like we have anyone else. So now it's the time for the committee members. We've had Mr. Anderson's presentation. We've had some insightful comments from Mr. San. So raise your hand, panelists. I'll see here. Nikki, you've had your hand up the whole time. I think it's probably a legacy hand. So I'm going to start with Stella Gray.
No, okay, it's a real hand, but okay.
It's a real hand. Okay, never mind. Go ahead.
No, go ahead with Stella, that's fine.
No, you go ahead. You've had it up the whole time.
Okay. Well, there's several things. That's, I hope that Bob Anderson is terrific. I've always thought so. And I've always thought that all these alternatives are like, well, we're going to poison you, and these are our 5 poisons, so you pick up which one you like. All right, my question one is, what is the eminent domain going to be? What are they going to tear down to put this thing up? That's question one. The other thing is, what is the number of what's the route of where all these miles go supposedly underneath the Santa Monica Mountains? That's question 2. Question 3 is, what is the escape hatch underneath the ground, underneath the Santa Monica Mountains? I mean, if it's a 3 mile or a 7 mile or whatever it is, if something happens in the tunnel, how are people going to get out?
Let me start with 1 because my brain is foggy right now and I won't remember them. So say 1 again, because I have answers so far for all of you. Questions.
What did I say? What did I say 1 was?
Was eminent domain.
Eminent domain. Okay.
No, but then, yeah. There's quite a bit of eminent domain required on all of the alternatives, but much of it is for what they call the MSF, the Maintenance and Storage Facility. To maintain either the monorail or the heavy rail, you need a pretty big facility where they can work on them at night and store the trains and all this. And there's a lot of eminent domain for that. Much of that eminent domain is in more commercial areas than residential areas. The only one that is really bad on eminent domain is alternative 4. If I can share my screen again, I'll show you the eminent domain chart for 4. Where are you guys? There we go. Pardon me while I look because, well, I'll show you. Some of this is hard to see. I don't know how many of you have been in the area, but this is the 405 where Sepulveda Boulevard crosses under it. This is where they would be drilling the tunnel to UCLA. The tunnel would be to the left.
I'm sorry, we're just seeing your finder window, not the image. You may have shared the window and not the screen.
Okay, let me grab another one and get that done correctly this time. I apologize. There we go. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Perfect.
Yeah, this is Sepulveda Boulevard. This is the 405. Ventura Boulevard is off to the right, going up and down. There's a big Whole Foods market here if you've been in the area. This is the construction laydown area for Alternative 4. This is where they put the big drilling machine in and drill down to UCLA.
So that's where Whole Foods is now. They would be
Whole
taking.
Foods is kind of where I'm laying down. I'm wiggling my.
I know. I mean, I know exactly where it is. I'm just,
Yeah.
so they're
This
gonna-
happens to be people's homes right here. They'll take out 9 to 11 homes. They'll remove a section of a street, take off an end of a hillside that's right here. And this is where the hole is. Where these tracks go right here, this is the elevated one that Stephen was talking about. The tracks go above ground. Right here are 120 or 100 apartment or condos. Here's about another 100 condos. And there's about 20 businesses over here further on. And all of those go. So this has about this has the most eminent domain of anything that you'll see.
Okay, well, Bob,
And so it's pretty significant. There are charts of eminent domain and maps in the DEIR buried in the back of an attachment to an appendix that actually give the assessor property numbers for all the eminent domain.
wonderful.
But it's not great.
Well, let me ask you this, Bob. Since most of the people in the flats on the west side here are enamored with number 6, where on the west side and where in the valley would that eminent domain be?
Oh, I'll show you that one. Let's hope I will. I may have to get this to, yeah. This is probably not showing, so I'm going to shut it down again and get it to show. 1 second.
The thoughts coming through my head that I need to learn a little bit about eminent domain law.
Yes, you do.
Yeah, these are what
Opportunities.
It identifies on all the charts. The maps have either where they give them basically ground rights or they give them fee simple eminent domain. But this is alternative 6 as it goes. This is the line itself going back and forth with the purple. And that's Van Nuys Boulevard. This is Ventura Boulevard. So you're here at the corner of Van Nuys and Ventura Boulevards. This is underground, alternative 6. They take out basically 2 commercial blocks right here for all the staging areas. And since they're drilling south to UCLA to the left, and they're drilling north to Van Nuys, and the Van Nuys Metrolink station to the north, it's got 2. TBM is a tunnel boring machine. He's got 2 tunnel boring machines. One thing I got to mention, just so everybody knows, I forgot to mention it. For alternative 1 has no tunnel. Alternative 2 has a small tunnel. It's a monorail, but the small tunnel is about 40 feet in diameter. Alternatives 4 and 5, the tunnel diameter is 43.5 feet. These are big, but they only have 1 tunnel, not 2. Alternative 6, since it's old-fashioned, has 2 20-foot tunnels next to each other. So they have to bore twice in each direction. It's the old way of doing it, and that's one of the reasons it costs more than anything else, even though it's shorter. It makes me mad because it's a nice route that could be made acceptable for a lot of things, and they bumbled it up with it's really, they made a mistake in their procurement strategy for the PDA contracts, but don't get into that.
Ms. Miner, did you have any additional questions that weren't answered?
She had 2 more.
Yeah.
She had 2 more, but wait a second. Do you mind if we also see the eminent domain map for number 5, since that's going to go under Bel Air?
Yeah, there's no eminent domain in Bel Air for
Okay,
alternative 5. I can tell you that.
great. Okay, so
Okay.
Nikki had two more questions. One of her questions had to do with the route of the trains under the hills. And the other was, what is the escape route? How are they planning for escape routes in case of fire in the tunnels?
Yeah. Um, Good. There's no eminent domain under Bel Air, but if you dig deep into the DEIR, you will find that in the area in Bel Air between Sunset and, say, the Bel Air Hotel, Upper Stone Canyon Road, they have to put 3 special modifications on the track to reduce the vibration levels back to acceptable requirements.
3 what? What did you say?
They call them mitigation methods, and it's special kinds of track mountings and other things that they use to reduce the vibration levels. Because at that point in Bel Air, the tunnels are not very deep. I think they're about 45 or 55 feet from the top of the tunnel to ground level. So they're not way down. And they have to do the same thing in Sherman Oaks for alternative 4.
But there are caissons on some of the buildings in that area that are that deep.
Yeah, there are. And that's why Keep Bel Air Beautiful is going to sue to stop the concept.
And what was the third question that Nikki had? The fires.
Yes,
Right.
escape routes.
Okay, I can't answer for alternative 6 because I haven't found it.
Because it doesn't exist.
Mickey. Well, it has to exist, but I just haven't been able to find it, and I apologize for that. But alternatives 4 and 5, the one thing that's very good about these bigger tunnels, does anybody know anything? Have you heard of venting? You know, if you've ever been in London and the tube comes through and you're in the station, it just about blows you off the platform with the air blowing through.
Yes.
To prevent that from happening, they have to put in vents that vent it to the above ground. And the vents, people worry about having eminent domain for vents. Alternative 4 and 5, because they have this huge tunnel, there's a big airspace above the train area. And that eliminates the need for vents, which is good.
Did you say eliminate?
It eliminates the need for venting. So there's no vents on alternative 5 or 3 or 4 in the Bel Air or Sherman Oaks area. They'll
But
be at
Bob,
the
what
end of the
happens then
tunnel.
what happens then if there's a fire? Because
If there's a fire in the tunnel,
there is
there
no
are
vent then to crawl out of.
no, you don't crawl out of the vent. The vent is to get the smoke out. And that's taken out through the top of the tunnel. And it's blown out at either end of the tunnel.
What happens if there's a fire?
If there's a fire and you're stuck in there, I think you have to walk out.
That's my point.
And it's 5 miles long.
Right,
And by
exactly.
the way, the valley's 700 feet higher than Bel Air or UCLA, maybe 600. So it's an uphill climb. So everybody's going to be walking downhill to Westwood. It's difficult.
Bob,
Remember I said alternate 6 was a problem? It's using the old technology with 2 small tunnels. There's no room for vents. So they have to build a venting facility east of Roscommere Reservoir.
can I show that, Bob? Does anyone
Yeah.
mind if I pull the?
I have it if you want, or you can show it, Travis.
Yeah. So Stone Canyon Reservoir, they're coming through underneath right here, and I've zoomed out a little bit so people can see where we are. They come through right here. And so if we zoom in and you see this little fork between those two little, they're not even roads, they're like paths. I'll switch over to the plan, and that fork is that fork right there. And this outline is grading, and there's a venting structure and a escape hatch that will come up and be built in the walnut woodland up above Stone Canyon. So that's the structure right there. There's a scale in the lower right. So that's about 40 feet. So that's maybe, where's that going to be, 80 feet across, give or take. This is the tube underneath. There's a little, what do they call it? An adit or an adit that goes into it. I forget my pronunciation of mining terms. And then a vent here and some elevators and whatnot. And so that will then introduce a new structure right here in the middle of the open space around Upper Stone Canyon that is going to be visible to everybody along Roscommare, as opposed to, and that's also a protected native species habitat.
Can I ask a real quick question on this? Because no one, where was the genesis behind six? Why was it developed? Was it done at the urging of a particular constituency? I haven't been paying close attention to this. So where did the six come from?
I can address a little bit of that. It was one of the earliest concepts. And they had different numbering then, so I can't tell you what it was. I can actually show you a picture of it if you're interested. But everybody thought because it's a more commercial area, a less residential area, more businesses, that Van Nuys Boulevard would be a very good place to have something in the valley. And so they always had a design that had a Van Nuys Boulevard.
Oh, so it was more
subject.
about the outlet, less about
It
going
was more
like
about the valley.
where in the mountains it was going to go through. It was more about once it gets past the mountains, when you get over to the valley side, is it going to be in a more desirable location?
You can't tell the difference between, if they had modern trains on everything, you wouldn't know the difference on the west side from UCLA south for alternatives 4, 5, or 6.
Okay. It has a more desirable location, arguably, on the valley side because it's near more commercial uses.
I guess.
Okay.
You know, Metro in its reports never provides a complete rationale for why they selected a route.
Okay.
You go back to the 2018 feasibility study, you won't find the rationalization for why they picked the route. You'll just find the route.
Okay. Stella has been so patient. So Stella, your hand is raised. Go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, I actually received answers to some of my questions, but I still have something else. So Bob, you mentioned some schedule concerns.
Yes.
Would you please elaborate?
Yeah. The schedule concerns for me have to do with the budget concerns. You're talking here, if you believe Metro numbers, you're talking probably $17 billion to $29 billion to build one of these alternatives. They've got, if you look at Measure M, and I don't know how familiar you are with Measure M, but in the back of Measure M is a thing called Attachment A, and it lists every project they're going to build from 2016 to 2060. And this is one of those projects. And they provide the budget. And the budget is about $5.7 billion. But that's back in 2015. So you escalate it, it's about $8 billion. Half of that, 45% of that, comes from Measure M sales tax. You know how we pay the sales tax on everything we buy? It's actually Measure M, Measure R, Proposition A, and Proposition C. Metro gets $4.3 billion a year in sales tax revenue from LA County for transit. And you can go online, I can show you the actual numbers, and they add up to that. That's all they get. All the rest of the money for this project has to come from federal, state, county, or city. Federal is going to be a rough haul. State doesn't have much money, if any. County doesn't have much money, and the city's broke, or $1 billion and a hock. So where's it? You've got $4 billion a year coming in, but it's building all these projects. Metro's budget a year is $9 billion. So the $4 billion doesn't even cover their budget. So the real question is, if they only have $4 billion allocated from Measure M, and it's going to cost, let's say, $25 billion to build one of these, where does the other $20 billion come from? And what happens to the project if there's no money for the next 4 years for this project? Metro says something that I was a project manager. My job was to make something worth technically, build it on time, and build it for cost. Those were the goals I was given when I was an engineer doing work or project manager. Metro is going to pick these, which one they want to build. Which one are we going to build without knowing what their funding is or their budget, and without knowing how long it's going to take to build. And that's my concern. And they said on the schedule that they put out that these schedules are not limited by funding. In other words, if we don't get the funding, the schedule gets longer. But you haven't told us where you're going to get the funding, so how do we know how long the schedule is? And the answer is you don't. So I would take almost any schedule that Metro showed you for the subway and double it, at least. So instead of start getting this thing built by 2036 or something, it'll probably be 2045. I mean, I'm not going to be around. If I am, I'm going to look really bad, not just bad.
Well,
And
that'll be obsolete by then.
yeah, it will. And the low technology one that's obsolete already will be more obsolete. And if there's a flying taxi going around,
What you just said actually is really important, because the already obsolete technology will be even further obsolete in 15, 20 years. That's actually a very important point. Stella, did you have any other questions?
No, my second question was about budget sources. So thank you.
Okay, Ms. Templeton.
So with respect to the public-private partnership, is it some of the money is coming from SkyRail and or Bechtel?
Let me tell you what I know about that. I told you earlier that I pulled the proposals through California Public Record Act's request and went through them. Unfortunately, every piece of information on the public-private partnership was redacted. So I only know what I know about public-private partnerships because I worked on one during my career. But basically, the idea here was, as was explained to me by the guy's name was Joshua Shank, Dr. Joshua Shank. He used to be Metro's chief innovation officer. When Phil Washington left, Joshua left. And the idea was that the Metro as a county organization and the SkyRail or Bechtel consortiums get together and they come up with a financial plan that funds the project. One way they explained a possibility was, okay, SkyRail or Bechtel build their concept. They build it, they operate it, they maintain it, let's say for 15 years. During that 15 years, they collect all the fares. So that's an income stream to offset the financing that they're provided. And then that lowers the amount of financing that Metro needs over that time. So maybe you can build it. That, PPPs are tricky, but at least in concept, that sounds like a good thing. But what you'll find is that Metro never has explained ever in any document or in the DEIR how a PPP would work or how they think it might work. So we have no idea what's going on with a PPP, but they do acknowledge they may use it, which to me is really fraud. I'll just be blunt. It's absolute fraud to say you might do something and not explain how it might work. If I was Metro and I had a PPP and it was the magic key to the kingdom that let me build this thing on time, I think I'd want to tell you about it. So my gut feeling says it ain't so great. But I don't know. I have asked them for 5 years to explain it, and they won't. And it drives me crazy.
Ms. Templeton, did you have any additional questions?
I have a comment on that. I mean, it's possible that they're not disclosing it to the public because they currently have SkyRail and Bechtel. They're probably negotiating with both about what it is or have.
That is correct.
Yeah, but so they don't want the other ones don't want the other one to know.
And remember, Alternative 6 cannot be built under a PPP.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was another question I had. Do you know why that route, if it's a better route, why Bechtel did Metro assign the routes, or did the
Okay.
Rail or Bechtel pick their route?
Okay.
And if so, why didn't
I'm going to
Bechtel?
give you my opinion. I've got a few things that fed into this. This is what I've heard. It's all rumor and innuendo, but I will tell you, here's a fact. SkyRail bid alternative 1, period, with an option for alternative 3. But the one that they bid and won the contract on was alternative 1. Bechtel bid alternative 4 only in their proposal. That's all they bid. They bid alternative 4 because it would be cheaper and that will give them a higher point score to win the proposal. So they won. SkyRail was going to build, these weren't the names of them then, but SkyRail was going to build alternative 1, work on that. Bechtel was going to design alternative 4. Metro realized that they didn't have all the alternatives they needed to analyze that they'd identified during the scoping, the feasibility period, and CEQA doesn't allow that. So they went to SkyRail and said, will you design alternatives 1, 2, and 3 instead so we cover all the bases? And SkyRail said yes. Later, they dropped alternative 2. So now you have SkyRail designing 2, alternative 1 and alternative 3. My story that I heard from somebody pretty knowledgeable was they went to Bechtel and said, please help us. You've got to design alternative 5 and 6 for us. And Bechtel said, no, we'll design 4 and 5 because they're the same right, but we're not going to design 6. So now Metro had a 6 that they had to design, but they had nobody to design it, and they couldn't do it under a PPP. So they had, because they knew this could happen, they had put an optional task into the environmental contractor's contract. And this I know is fact because I pulled all the contracts and all the contract mods for the last 5 years. They put in a clause for an optional task to design some alternative if they needed them to. So they assigned it, alternative 6, to the environmental contractor design. Then they realized that the competitive nature that you talked about because of the public-private partnerships had to keep all the information not separate so that it couldn't leak competitive information between the designs. So they had to create what's called an administrative firewall inside the environmental contract, which took them 1.5 years to do, which is why part of the reason the DEIR is 3 years late. And but it didn't get designed anywhere near the level that alternatives 1, 3, 4, and 5 got designed. It's a much lesser design concept.
Right. Thank you.
Long
And
story,
I appreciate you sharing all of your knowledge
Bob,
with us.
why did Bechtel? This is where you have to get even to further speculation. They were asked to design 6. Why did they decline?
That's what I heard. If
But
I
why?
Was,
Why did
if
they
I was
decline?
Bechtel, 4 and 5 are kind of the same route. They go the 2/3 of the route's exactly the same till you get to Sepulveda to Ventura Boulevard in the valley. The rest of it, you're either above or you're below Sepulveda Boulevard, so they're very similar. But when you get a completely different route with completely different parameters that would go under Van Nuys Boulevard, that's a totally separate design effort, and they probably didn't have the money in their budget to be able to do it. That would be my guess.
Okay. All right. Who else on the committee has questions for Mr. Anderson or would like to just talk? This is our deliberation time. I guess we're not taking a vote tonight, but this is our opportunity to discuss and to tell each other what we think about these alternatives. Obviously, we're going to have further meetings. We're going to discuss other perspectives and get other community viewpoints. But would anyone like to discuss what we have been hearing about today?
Air shafts.
I don't know about you. I mean, I've certainly learned a lot. It doesn't, the thing that just I'm thinking about is where's this money going to come from? Like, are we doing this with sort of like the high-speed rail, which I in theory, I love. It sounds great. But obviously we haven't had the funding to complete it, and the costs have just completely skyrocketed. I just wonder where they're getting the money. Like that seems like, how would you even rule out projects based on feasibility if all of the alternatives are arguably infeasible financially? When you don't have a mechanism laid out demonstrating where the funding is coming from. I would find it difficult to be a decision maker if I was on the Metro board and was trying to figure out which alternative to choose from. Well, do I have the money for 17, alternative one? It's a $17 billion project. Doesn't look like it. Um, I certainly don't have the money for 24 billion. And then I don't know, that's just what I'm thinking about is just where's the money coming from?
I attended January, I think it was couldn't have been January 2020 because that was COVID. Maybe it was 2022. I forget. But it was a Metro open house. And I had the luxury of having a videographer with me. So I could, anything I asked them about and they gave an answer, I could record it. And I have a video where I asked that question, where's the money coming from, of a Metro person at that. And we have it posted on our the video's available in links that are in some of the letters I sent. And I can send anybody who wants it the link to that video. But their answer was, it's too soon to think about funding. We have to make the selection first. And I just gave up. I mean, that's very, very dumb. I don't go out looking for a $6 million, $1 million house without qualifying for a $4.8 million mortgage, which I'd never qualify for, so it wouldn't happen. You kind of figure out where your funding is before you buy a house. But they just pick what they want because it's environmentally the best, supposedly. By the way, and this is my last time my soapbox, the environmental document was never designed to help decision makers decide which one to bid. It wasn't for that at all. It's to see that it met the environmental requirements. Do you need sound walls? Do you need this? Are there geological problems? Or are aesthetics problems, noise problems, vibrational problems, other sorts of things, reservations that are being bothered, hydrology. But they're using it as a decision document. The environmental document doesn't even include cost and schedule. It can't legally. But they're going to decide which one to build based on it. It's foolishness.
So Bob, on that, the purpose of the environmental document is, in fact, to identify and describe the environmental impacts of the project, which is part of decision making.
Correct.
Can you highlight some of the areas of the analysis, the differences, things that you think are particularly interesting, problematic, surprising? And do you know people who are looking at it from a third-party perspective, who aren't the consultants who did the EIR, who are actually digging under the hood on the technical aspects of the environmental analysis itself around noise and vibration or shaking or seismic safety or things like that? Are there people who are doing that you know of? And or are there particular technical problems with the document that you want, or things that not are problems but are interesting that you noted on the analysis side?
Yeah, Travis, I wish I knew somebody who's doing that. I've talked to several people, but it's really expensive to get somebody to take a look at that. And I don't know of anybody who's taking a look at those things. I know enough to be dangerous about a lot of this stuff because I was involved so much during my career. But one of the considerations we have, especially for Alternative 4, but also for the monorails, is noise. And I don't know if any of you live anywhere where you're bothered by airplane noise. But there's a lot of people in the valley near the Van Nuys Airport and Studio City near the Burbank Airport that are really bothered by it with the latest FAA route changes. The way the government gets away with loud noise, like a plane going overhead for 10 seconds, is they average the noise out over the daylight hours, and then they throw in some nighttime hours with penalties, and they get an average noise. Turns out most of us, when a plane goes over our house, are bothered by the instantaneous noise, not by the average noise. Our ear isn't really good at averaging it out, ignoring the noise. They use the same thing for subway. The analysis, Travis knows, it's called DNL, day-night level. Let's say you're in an apartment building and the tracks that are elevated in Sherman Oaks go right in front of your bedroom window, about 20 or 30 feet away. They go by, it's going to last about 4 seconds, 5 seconds. Things are good. It's going to go by at 65 miles an hour. Every minute and a quarter in one direction or the other during rush hour. Every minute and a quarter. And now you average that out over the whole minute and a quarter. Gee, the sound level meets the requirement, but it doesn't help you who are sitting in that poor apartment building. I'm not smart enough to know if they do the same thing with the vibrational analysis. But what I do know is that if you have no vibration at your house from anything, and now you have some vibration that may go only when the train goes by, it's probably not going to be the right answer. So the noise and vibration are very scary on this project. And I wish we could get a consultant to be able to go in and take a look at it. The DEIR, because of the way it's put together, is very descriptive. This is the requirement. We don't meet it. We will do this to fix it. I have mitigated it. That's that. What you will find, though, in the DEIR, and it terrifies me, is the construction noise from the stations when they're building them, because they're called cut and cover. They dig the stations from the top down, like they're doing on Wilshire Boulevard with that mess they have going on. That construction noise in the DEIR is often unmitigatable. It's going to occur, period. And that's terrifying because construction could take years and years and years. That's another place that I worry that something's going on. Then you find other areas that really bother me is aesthetics. Alternative 4, they evaluated the aesthetics of it where it comes out of the hill and goes above ground. And they said one of the requirements was it can't bother the view. Okay, well, it said, well, the view of the mountains is still good whether we have the train or not, so we're not bothering anybody's view. Like, that really doesn't make much sense. You're looking at what it's going to do to a neighborhood and a community. There's one that they don't talk about at all, which is terrifying to the valley. Does anybody remember when UCLA had the water main rupture
Yeah.
under Sunset Boulevard?
Mm-hmm.
That was an 18-inch pipe, if you remember. But that's what it was, 18-inch high pressure pipe. Okay. All of your water on the west side comes from a 96-inch high pressure water main that runs under Sepulveda Boulevard, all the way down where this route's going to be. I think it's great if it ruptures because my house will become waterfront property and it'll be worth a lot more. The rest of the valley will get wiped out. But these pipes are old, and so we had Bechtel come and present to the Sherman Oaks Neighborhood Council 2 weeks ago. And my architect friend of mine asked a question. What do you guys do? Because you're going to be either drilling under this tunnel on this pipe on Sepulveda, or you're going to be putting something over it. He said, I'm an architect. I had to design one of the Getty buildings near Church Lane. That pipe runs under Church Lane too. He said, we had to encase the whole pipe in concrete before we could do anything with it. What are you doing? And the guy said, pipe? Wait a minute. Everybody's known about this pipe. I talked to Metro about it in 2018. And Bechtel looked at us and said, pipe? So one of our questions is, what are you going to do with the pipe? And that's something that has to be looked at because you'd lose all the water to the west side and the valley gets flooded. And it has 30 times the amount of water flowing through it that the Sunset Boulevard pipe has. 30 times. think about what it could do. So there's a lot of concerns like this, but they don't explain them in the DEIR package. Jamie, you hit the scary one, which is cost. If you don't know cost, you can never know schedule. That was an old project management adage. If you don't know how much money you have, you don't know how long it's going to take you to build, because there's an optimum build time for anything. If you don't have enough money to build it in the optimum time, then it's just like the guy who builds your house and says it's going to be done in 6 months and it's done in 18, and the price goes through the roof and you're up the creek.
You mean every contractor I've ever had?
Yeah, every contractor you've ever had. And it's the other thing that Metro didn't do here. They've got eminent domain maps. They did not send letters to people saying your house would disappear on this contract.
You'd think they would invite them to participate in the EIR public comment process, right?
They didn't. I will tell you.
No, they're supposed to read legal newspapers and get noticed that way, right?
Where the tunnel comes out of the hill, on my street, there's a woman I talk to all the time. She's very worried. The tunnel comes out of the hill behind her house. But she's not the most worried one, because there's one house right at the top of this cul-de-sac. That's where the tunnel comes out and the house disappears. And these people didn't know it. I actually walked around the neighborhood, made my own flyers up, and put one in everybody's mailbox. And it started to get a lot of emails and calls. And it just goes on and on. These poor people.
I have a lot of people in my network. I don't know a lot of people. Some people in my network are really anti-monorail for a variety of different reasons.
Yeah.
And do you have a viewpoint on that?
Yeah, I do. I actually like the monorail concept. The reason it's happening in a lot of countries is because you don't want to tunnel a lot of things underground. It's very, very expensive. By going above ground, if you used existing right-of-ways like freeways where cars are already going, you could run monorails on them. You hear a lot of people, oh, they're way less capacity. No, they're not. Well, they're way less this. No, they're not. They're a little slower. That's true, because they've got to weave around things usually that's existing. But I don't have a problem with a monorail. And my friend and I actually advocated for a monorail. The original Metro monorail that they came up with in 2018 was going to run down the center of Sepulveda Boulevard. And we told him, what are you, crazy? And we went and talked to enough people that, why don't you build it down the center of the freeway? And everything we heard from everybody was, that's a good idea. Well, they did build it down the center of the freeway through the pass, but they put it on the east side of the freeway in the valley because there wasn't enough room in the center. Okay, you say that. But now it's on the east side where it's near homes. It's going to require some sound walls to protect certain areas.
Isn't that going to mess up traffic for like a gazillion years on the 405? I mean, can you imagine the lane closures and all that stuff?
They actually don't. It's really clever. The construction methods that they explained in their proposal is they actually work at night and create, it's in the center. So they create the foundation for the columns at night so they don't have any freeway closures except during the middle of the night. And then they start building the track, and they bring the new track in on the track and erect the columns and construct it along the way. And the interesting thing about a monorail, since you're not drilling a tunnel, you can build as many of those things as fast as you can. You can build it really quick if you have the budget to do that. So, look, the valley I don't know if anybody knows, if you've been on the red line that starts at Universal City or North Hollywood and goes south to downtown, if you look back and find the original Metro or whoever they were then drawings, do you know where the valley terminus of that line was? Canoga Park. That's what we were told it would go to. Well, they ran out of money. So they stopped at North Hollywood with 2 stations instead of 20 stations.
It ends very abruptly there.
It does. And I don't know if you know, but do you know Bob Hertzberg and Richard Katz?
Yes.
Yeah.
Was a senator, right?
Yeah, senator, and he was a senator and a assembly member, and Katz was a legislator too. Katz wrote when they were going to build the red line, they were going to start downtown and drill north till they got to the valley. And Katz realized that if they did that, it'd never get to the valley because they'd run out of money about the Hollywood Bowl. So they put in legislation and forced them to start in the middle at both ends and drill to the middle. So that way the valley couldn't get screwed by having no stations at all. But it was originally supposed to go way out. Instead, we got the Orange Line. By the way, Metro's ridership analysis for the Orange Line, the reason Metro never funded the Orange Line, which is the busway that goes east-west in the valley along the Chandler right-of-way, that was never in a Metro budget. And the way that got built was Richard Katz and Bob Hertzberg decided that'd be a pretty good thing to build. And Hertzberg told me this himself. He was in a meeting with Governor Brown. Brown called him in. This was when he was wasn't the pro tem of the Senate, he was the Assembly Speaker. So he called him in and he wanted some budget for something. He needed some money. He says, okay, what can I do for you if you can get this thing passed? So he called Katz. He said, how much money do you need? He said, I need 50 million to build the Orange Line. So he came back to the governor and said, I need 50 billion. I want to build this Orange Line. He says, you got it if you get it passed. Metro was given that money. It wasn't in their budget. And they were told to build the Orange Line. They said, we never built it because it wouldn't have the ridership. Our analysis shows it will take 3, 4, 10 years to get to peak ridership. They said, so what? Build it anyhow. They built it. And 3 months after it opened, it was above peak ridership and completely full, which is why they are now modifying it to put overpasses above Van Nuys and Sepulveda Boulevard, to put grade stops, bars that come down, so it can go faster. If you've ever gotten on it, especially during the school days, going to the various places, that's it.
So are you saying that forecasting ridership is notoriously tricky? Is that what you're saying?
It's tricky. I mean, I'll give you an example. How do you predict whether a student who lives in the valley, let's say the valley, if they drove, it's going to cost them how much time to get to UCLA? It's a long time, an hour and a half. It's awful. And they're going to have to pay to park when they get there. Okay, now you've got 2 choices. You've got a monorail, or that's going to take an additional 10 minutes and maybe 20 if you had a bus that you had to go on. Okay, how do you compare that to one that has a direct stop? Well, I'm sure there's going to be a difference, but in the long run, I think they're going to be closer than the predictions might show, because you're not dealing with, gee, there's one of each, which one do I take? You're dealing with, I've got this, do I take it and get there in 20 minutes and it costs me $4, or do I drive down in an hour and a half and pay $15 to park?
Plus, it's hard for who's ever doing forecasting this to kind of take into consideration all the personal decisions that each person makes and
It's rough to
choosing
do,
whether or
yeah.
not to do that. So are you telling us all of this because you're saying that the ridership for the monorail might be more than what people are saying? Because that, in my little network, that's what one of the criticisms of monorail or anything going down the 405. Because I'm thinking of the Green Line. Have you ever been on the Green Line? It kind of stinks. It's like going right down. What is that freeway that it's on?
It's on the 105.
105. It's like horrible. You get off and there's like these zooming cars going by.
Yeah.
And
Well,
so
they
like,
made that, they put the stations in the center of the freeway.
I mean, that was a really bad design, but some people are saying that you might have a similar like outcome if you put it down the middle of the 405. I'm just saying that's what some people are saying.
That I know what people are saying. And the sad thing is, Metro never gave us a forum to learn these things. Look, my council member, I met with her personally, actually in my house. And I was saying, we don't want you to, it's a hard decision for you to pick. I know you don't have enough data, but please oppose alternative 4, which you didn't want to do because you want to study it more. But I said, what about the monorail? Be fair. I don't like the monorail because the stations are in the center of the freeway. I said, no, they're not. They never have been. Yes, they are. So I sent her all the data. A year later, I talked to her again. And I said, what about the monorail? I don't like it because the stations are in the center of the freeway. I said, they've never been in the center of the freeway. Here are the metro drawings. They're not in the center of the freeway. They're off to the right or the left. Oh, okay. There was so much bad information being put out by people on the monorail or this. There was a video that came out way back in 2019. Everything in it was so wrong, but people chose to believe it. And it's a shame. And I told Metro in several comment letters that if there's disinformation that's wrong, that's out in the world, you have a real obligation to say this is wrong and this is what the real situation is, but they don't do that. And I think that the monorail got a bad rap. It's got a few things wrong with it that I don't like, but it's nice, modern trains. It's cheaper than the other. It's quicker to build. And I would love for them to build an east-west one along Ventura Boulevard, along the Ventura Freeway. Because, we have nothing in the valley that goes east-west except the bus line. And Measure M put in another bus line on Devonshire. Ventura Boulevard's a big street. There's nothing that goes east-west in Ventura except the bus that takes you. That's awful. So it's a shame what's happened to the monorail, but I understand that it happened and Metro let it happen.
So thank you so much for that. It's 8:25. So our chair, Mr. Schlesinger, has his hand up. So let's go ahead and take any last remaining questions, and then we're gonna.
I do have to leave about 8:30.
Yeah, exactly. And
for my wife.
There's dinner downstairs waiting for me, and I suspect some other people want to eat dinner. So, Mr. Schlesinger, you're muted. You're still muted. And he's still muted. We can't hear you. All right. Miss Miner, do you?
I'm unmuted.
There you go.
Okay. Question, Bob. The freeway downtown Los Angeles that goes to Long Beach has a structure with a bunch of cars that are going directly down there that bypass the standard traffic.
Yeah.
What's wrong with that?
Nothing.
Why aren't we considering that?
I don't know.
Well, two good questions. Okay.
They're good questions. I'll tell you one thing that I was told a long time ago. I don't know if it's true anymore. Metro's chief engineer is a tunnel designer. So maybe somebody wanted to build tunnels. There's a lot of good questions. I don't know if you know that Keep Bel Air Beautiful. You may have heard the name Fred Rosen.
Yes.
Yes. Everybody knows Fred Rosen.
Yeah. Fred's attorneys deposed Metro's police chief planning officer for 5.5 hours on Good Friday.
Good.
Yeah, it was interesting. They're kind of afraid of Fred. They would not let him in the deposition. He had to listen to it over Zoom with no video.
Well, he does a lot of good things for Bel Air, I can tell you that.
Well, but I got to sit in the whole deposition. And the transcript of the deposition is on our website. If you click soha914.com and click on Sepulveda Transit Boulevard and you read down the various things, you will find the whole deposition. Some very interesting things. Just so you all know, he basically said, and you can read this yourself, that it was about talking about working with UCLA as a major stakeholder. But the chief planning officer said that, groups like, the Bel Air Association, they're just groups of residents and homeowners. They're not a stakeholder.
Oh, okay.
Just thought you'd like to know that.
Yeah.
Ms. Minor, you have your hand up. Was that an additional question since we're getting close to 8:30?
Yeah, no, I just want to make another little statement that several years ago there was some deep digging doing during the day, during the night, in the Beverly Grove area, way deep. And 2 blocks away from where the digging was, there began to get cracks in the homes. So it stands to reason that with digging a tunnel underneath where homes are, is, even though it's very far, supposedly far away, that ultimately, for digging so long and so much, they could cause cracks in the houses there in the hills. Okay, that's it.
Thank you, Ms. Minor. Well, it's 8:29, so I think we have concluded our discussion. I want to thank Mr. Anderson so much for your presentation and providing your knowledge to us. We really appreciate it. And as Dr. Longcourt stated, the full neighborhood council is going to vote on whether or not to establish an ad hoc committee. So if that is in the affirmative and an ad hoc committee is established, then we will have another meeting of that ad hoc committee tentatively scheduled for July 28th. The topic is going to be community perspectives, and we have some ideas about who would be invited to that meeting to provide some additional community perspectives. So thank you all for attending tonight.
Can I say one thing?
Sure, go ahead.
You may have seen in that big file list I was going down, I have about 100 shots I've taken of various parts. After I did them all, I realized I couldn't remember where they came from. So I went back and annotated each with what volume, document, and page it is in the DEIR. I'll be glad to share any of those with anybody, because you might see something, then you can go to the page and read around it, and it helps you understand where things occur. So if, Travis I've known for a long time, I'd be glad to share those files with him, and you can look at it. It's out of the DEIR. It's nothing I've said. It doesn't have any of my comments on it. It's just for info, but it might help you find something that you're interested in.
Thank you. We appreciate that. And also, so one other thing here, feel free to invite members of your community or other interested parties to attend future meetings. This is largely intended to be kind of an educational thing so that we can all get up to speed regarding this project, and we can participate in the EIR public comment process. Does anyone have anything else that they would like to speak about for good of the order?
Well, Steve Sand has had his hand up a long time now.
Oh, I apologize. I didn't see that in the
Excuse me,
attendee.
my wife is calling. I've got to go.
Thank you so
Bob.
much,
We
Ms.
appreciate it.
Anderson. We
Yep.
Can I
appreciate
sign out? Is it okay?
Please do. Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Give her our love.
Mr. Sand,
Thank you, Robin.
is there your hand is up. I apologize. Didn't see it in the attendees. Is there anything else you would like to state?
Yes, thank you. And just in the interest of time, because I know you guys all need to go, I just wanted to offer a quick comment about the financial issues, because we've had similar questions. So what I just want to share with you is, when we've asked this question, I just want to share with you what Metro says, and you can agree with it or not, but just by way of information, Metro will tells us that literally every single project they've ever built, whether it's the red line, the purple line, the green, the gold, pick the color, Expo, whatever, they say that they always build them in phases. That's just standard operating procedure. And I can tell you with the purple line, for example, the extension, these 7 stations they're building, our station in Westwood, we're in the final stage 3. Stage 1, they built 3 stations at Wilshire La Brea, Wilshire Fairfax by the museum, and then Wilshire La Cienega. Then when they had an opportunity to apply for federal funding, actually during the first Trump administration, they received money from the Trump administration. Believe it or not, they were funded during Donald Trump's first administration for phase 2. That took the train to Wilshire Rodeo and then to Century City. And then about a year later, they were able to apply for additional federal and state funds, which they also received, and that allowed them to then move forward with the station at Wilshire Westwood in the Village, and then the one at the VA. That's just one example. So yes, it does seem odd that they plan these projects and they don't have the money in hand, but they will tell you that that factually is literally how every single metro project has been built. It's built in phases. And with regard to federal funding, they've noted that given the timing of CEQA approvals and NEPA approvals, the national approvals for environmental review, they would be going for federal funding, not during this current presidential administration. There's no way they would be applying. So whoever is the next president, that's when they would be applying for federal funding, but they're not planning and they wouldn't be ready to apply during this administration. So I just wanted to share with you that factual information.
Thank you so much, Mr. San. Any of the other board members have anything to state in good of the order? All right.
Meetings in person on Wednesday. Everybody who can be there, come a little early. We'll have some sandwiches. Say hi. Enjoy the sun in the sky and the air outside before we start the meeting. Except for Leslie, who's enjoying the sun elsewhere.
That's the one of Tree People, right?
Yep, Tree People on Wednesday. We'll see everybody there.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for attending. I'm adjourning the meeting. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.